unconstitutional presidential decision to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention in Turkey is a major letdown for the women of this country. It will encourage misogynist groups waging war on women. It will undermine the democratic and secular principles of this country and endanger the international human rights system. But it will not deter us from our just struggle for freedom and justice with greater force and exuberance. The Istanbul Convention remains in force.
Women's Coalition binds itself with the Istanbul Convention with respect to the human rights and regional and international law.
Avrupa Konseyi İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin yürürlükte kalması ve uygulanması için disk olarak tüm gücümüzle ısrarcı olmaya devam edeceğiz.
Republican People's Party, CHP of Turkey, binds itself with the Istanbul Convention with respect to the human rights and regional and international law.
Avrupa Konseyi İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin yürürlükte kalması ve uygulanması için HDP olarak tüm gücümüzle ısrarcı olmaya devam edeceğiz.
Kadın Partisi insan haklarına, bölgesel ve uluslararası hukuka saygıyla İstanbul Sözleşmesi'ne bağlıdır.
Council of Europe Istanbul Convention is still continue to be implemented by Republican People's Party.
Even though the presidential decision of the withdrawal from the convention is null and void, İzmir Metropolitan Municipality is bound by Istanbul Convention that is still in force in Turkey and will continue to implement all its regulations within its jurisdiction. Istanbul Convention saves lives.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
Constitutional presidential decision to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention in Turkey is a major letdown for the women of this country. It will encourage misogynist groups waging war on women. It will undermine the democratic and secular principles of this country and endanger the international human rights system. But it will not deter us from our just struggle for freedom and justice with greater force and exuberance. The Istanbul Convention remains in force.
Women's Coalition binds itself with the Istanbul Convention with respect to the human rights and regional and international law.
Avrupa Konseyi İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin yürürlükte kalması ve uygulanması için disk olarak tüm gücümüzle ısrarcı olmaya devam edeceğiz.
Republican People's Party, CHP of Turkey, binds itself with the Istanbul Convention with respect to the human rights and regional and international law.
Avrupa Konseyi İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin yürürlükte kalması ve uygulanması için HDP olarak tüm gücümüzle ısrarcı olmaya devam edeceğiz.
Kadın Partisi insan haklarına, bölgesel ve uluslararası hukuka saygıyla İstanbul Sözleşmesi'ne bağlıdır.
Council of Europe Istanbul Convention is still continue to be implemented by Republican People's Party.
Even though the presidential decision of the withdrawal from the convention is null and void, İzmir Metropolitan Municipality is bound by Istanbul Convention that is still in force in Turkey and will continue to implement all its regulations within its jurisdiction. Istanbul Convention saves lives.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
constitutional presidential decision to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention in Turkey is a major letdown for the women of this country. It will encourage misogynist groups waging war on women. It will undermine the democratic and secular principles of this country and endanger the international human rights system. But it will not deter us from our just struggle for freedom and justice with greater force and exuberance. The Istanbul Convention remains in force.
Women's Coalition binds itself with the Istanbul Convention with respect to the human rights and regional and international law.
Avrupa Konseyi İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin yürürlükte kalması ve uygulanması için disk olarak tüm gücümüzle ısrarcı olmaya devam edeceğiz.
Republican People's Party, CHP of Turkey, binds itself with the Istanbul Convention with respect to the human rights and regional and international law.
Avrupa Konseyi İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin yürürlükte kalması ve uygulanması için HDP olarak tüm gücümüzle ısrarcı olmaya devam edeceğiz.
Kadın Partisi insan haklarına, bölgesel ve uluslararası hukuka saygıyla İstanbul Sözleşmesi'ne bağlıdır.
Council of Europe Istanbul Convention is still continue to be implemented by Republican People's Party.
Even though the presidential decision of the withdrawal from the convention is null and void, Izmir Metropolitan Municipality is bound by Istanbul Convention that is still in force in Turkey and will continue to implement all its regulations within its jurisdiction. Istanbul Convention saves lives.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon and welcome. My name is Joanna Maycock and I'm the Secretary General of the European Women's Lobby, and I will be moderating the event this afternoon. So I'm really glad on behalf of the European Women's Lobby, the European Women's Lobby Coordination in Turkey and the Women's Coalition of Turkey. We're really delighted to welcome all of you here to the public event that's going to take place this afternoon. Looking at both the achievements of the Istanbul Convention and also exploring avenues to overcome the existing obstacles towards its ratification and full implementation. Thanks really to our sisters in Turkey for that powerful, powerful video. I think that really set up this afternoon's session beautifully, and it's so powerful to see all the support that there is in Turkey, and I think we're all keen to know how we can better support you in that. So indeed, Istanbul Convention saves lives. I have a few pieces of housekeeping first. I think everybody's now a little bit used to these online webinars, but please, if I could ask everybody to mute unless you're speaking, in which case it's a good idea to unmute. Also, we have interpretation between English and Turkish. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a little globe icon and it says interpretation. So if you would like to have interpretation into Turkish, for example, you click on Turkish and I hope you'll be able to hear the interpretation and vice versa. We've got a really packed and exciting, really powerful lineup of speakers this afternoon. If you are not already scheduled to speak, please do make use of the chat box if you have any questions or comments to make. If there are questions, we'll gather up the questions and try to put those to our panelists at the appropriate moment. Although I have to say we may not be able to get to all of the questions because the event will just be for 2 hours today. So it's wonderful, really wonderful to see so many of you here today from across the European Women's Lobby membership, from throughout the women's movement, so many of our partners and sisters from Turkey as well, but also, of course, partners from the European Union institutions and from the European Union member states, some of whom you'll be hearing from this afternoon. I want to also welcome anybody who's watching on the live stream. So the event is also being live streamed at the moment through our YouTube channel. So you should all be aware, those of you who are in the Zoom meeting, that this meeting is being live streamed. If you do not want to be seen on the live stream, you may want to switch your video off, although you're welcome, of course, to leave your video on. So I also want to particularly thank, of course, all of our speakers from our membership, from our members in Turkey, and from across the EU institutions. But I want to say a special thank you to MEP Nacho Sanchez, who is our host this afternoon for today's event and who will be addressing a few words to us shortly. So thank you very much, Nacho. So why are we here today? It's the 10th anniversary of the Istanbul Convention, and at the age of 10, it remains the most comprehensive legal instrument in Europe that protects all women and girls from violence. We want to celebrate today, especially the incredible efforts of women and of women's organizations in campaigning and for their work in fighting for the full implementation of the Istanbul Convention. We want to also celebrate the work that women do every day on the front lines, fighting the pandemic of male violence against women and girls. We want to thank the European institutions, the member states, the European Parliament and the European Commission for incredible support for the Istanbul Convention, for its ratification and implementation, and particularly for maintaining and we hope upholding that support in these difficult times. It's only by working together, loud and united, that we can really secure the full implementation of the Istanbul Convention. So today's event, we're going to concentrate on really on the achievements of the Istanbul Convention so far, and also looking at how we can overcome the obstacles to the full implementation of the Istanbul Convention. We'll look also at steps about how we can strengthen the legal framework in Europe to protect women and girls from violence. As the European Women's Lobby, we have published a report on the 10th anniversary of the Istanbul Convention. We'll be hearing a little bit from the author of that report about the key findings of the report, especially the achievements that we've seen across the across Europe actually, with the Istanbul Convention. So the format, we will have first some interventions from the EU institutions, including a video message from Commissioner Helena Dalli, the Commissioner for Equality. We'll then have a round table where we'll have 3 speakers who are going to really stress the important achievements made so far, and also share some key messages on how to strengthen the Istanbul Convention further. And as I said, we'll be presenting findings from the European Women's Lobby report on the 10th anniversary of the Istanbul Convention. I think we'll be sharing also a link to that report in the chat box. We'll then have there'll be an opportunity, I hope, for some Q&A. So as I said, if you could put your questions in the chat box, we will monitor that and try and put some of your questions to the panelists. We'll then have a second roundtable where we're looking really at the obstacles to the full implementation of the convention in Europe. That will be particularly also looking at an update on the withdrawal decision by Turkey, and also discussions in other countries like Poland. We're going to look also at avenues for overcoming these obstacles and all the obstacles for ending violence against women and girls in Europe. So that will be the format. I'll try and keep us on time so we can finish at 4. Reminding you again that this is being live streamed. So hello to everybody on the live stream. And the session will be recorded so that people can watch it if they want to watch it again, or you can also share it with people who could not join us today. Once again, I remind you there is interpretation between Turkish and English available. There's an icon at the bottom of your screen in Zoom where that gives you the option. So some of our speakers will be speaking in Turkish, and for those of you who want interpretation into Turkish from English, that's where you have to go. Please keep yourselves on mute unless you are, of course, speaking. And I think we'll put in the chat box also the hashtags. So the hashtags Istanbul Convention Saves Lives, the hashtag Istanbul Convention and the hashtag End VAW, End Violence Against Women. So I hope that is clear in terms of the format and what to expect. Again, welcome to all of you taking the time to spend with us this afternoon to really both celebrate the achievements and explore what we can do to overcome the obstacles to really make male violence against women and girls a thing of the past. With that, I want to hand over with great thanks to Nacho Sanchez, MEP, who's our host today. We thank you for hosting us and look forward to hearing your words. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Can you hear me? Perfect. Thank you. You never know when we start the meeting. Well, thank you, Joanna. Thank you for your kind invitation. I see Ashley Han, and I saw the video. I thought for myself, why could anyone think this is about the imposing of a kind of a feminist agenda? This is about lives. This is for the lives of the people. It's simply as that, and for me it has been a pleasure to join you this morning and to see some friends in the video, Celine Sajek-Poke and other courageous Turkish activists. I'm glad to meet you all. Sometimes we organize our thinking in a way when we look to the past, creating some kind of benchmarks, some facts especially relevant, and that way of thinking sometimes hide what could be a more smooth and invisible process. Why are we starting this way? Because in Turkey things happen in a way that seems to be a pattern. For example, the coup attempt in the year 16 has been the great alibi to gain a more high grade of crashing on the opposition. The backsliding of democracy sometimes from Europe is signaled as a consequence of the coup attempt, but it's not. Things started to happen well before, even well before Gezi, that has been other benchmark on this painful backsliding of Turkey in a way to a more authoritarian system. And it's the same with the Istanbul Convention. We, as Europeans, we never receive any kind of formal announcement of the intention of the government to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention. They always send messages via some medium-level politicians, some parliamentarians, mid-level responsibles on the AKP, never a clear formal announcement. Turkish government is evaluating withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention. And this happened in a way that we have to establish as a pattern, because when we in the future eventually we're hearing from some medium-level politicians not coming from the government some things, we have to think this is part of the agenda, and this is part of the agenda that could be happen overnight. Never better say overnight, because when the withdrawal of the Istanbul Convention happened, and it's a shame for me to say so, the withdrawal of the Istanbul Convention happened only hours after a video conference of President Erdogan with the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the European Council, Michel. What was the message Mr. Erdogan received from these European leaders to act that way? I'm very ashamed to say that the message was at that time, I don't care about what you do domestically. I only care about the drilling, about Cyprus, about Greece, about oil, about Libya, about Nagorno. Whatever you do with your opposition is not our concern. And it's a shame. It's a shame because sometimes in Europe we use this idea that we promote values and we stand for our values and we are trying to promote democracy elsewhere, and we are talking about a candidate country. formally a candidate country. But what kind of message did Mr. Erdogan receive in that afternoon to act that way only after hours after this video conference from the leaders? And the message that Mr. Erdogan received was, we want to offer you a positive agenda. And I'm completely upset, like my colleagues in the parliament, because sometimes this is read in that way. European Union is offering a positive agenda to Mr. Erdogan. Sorry, girls, this is not European Union. This is the European Council and sometimes the European Commission, not the Parliament. The Parliament never surrender their role as a guardian of the values. The Parliament never surrender in the core of the agenda, and in the core in our relation with Turkey is about the human rights and rule of law. If we are never surrendering. For that, this is a little bit upset that sometimes we heard from the Parliament, the European Union offer, no, sorry, ladies, this is not the European Union. This is the Council, and sometimes the Commission. I say sometimes the Commission because later in the Sofagate day, in this horrible day for the diplomacy, for the manners, and for the feminists, in this very day, finally, Mrs. von der Leyen in the press conference mentioned clearly some issues with names and asking and demanding President Erdogan, we are not going to advance in any kind of positive agenda if there is no reforms on democratic standards. And this is good news for us, for the Parliament. But you have to be sure the Parliament never surrendered in the past, is not never surrendering our vision. For example, the Council is offering to Turkey custom unions renovation. For us, for the Parliament, we are not passing any kind of reform of the custom union is not with a strong democratic conditionality. But let's come back to this idea. How happened the withdrawal? It happened by night, overnight. Unhappily, it seems that Turkey is in an eternal night for the last years, and things happen at night. By decree, that means with any kind of attention to the political system and balance. There is no parliament in Turkey. There is no almost government in Turkey. It's everything about the palace. Okay, noted. And without any kind of formal announcement. And this is the way, because I heard from some medium-level politicians talk about death penalty. The same thing, the same way, I heard from some medium-level politicians about Hagia Sophia, and finally happened. For that reason, I want to call your attention to this way of acting. It's not needed a formal announcement. It's not needed to send a law or a draft or a debate on the National Assembly. It's just about a few people closet in the palace deciding for your lives, girls. And this is it we have to be aware, because that will happen in the future with other issues. And for that reason, I just want to assure you we are keeping vigilant. Sometimes we feel that you have a feeling of despair in regard of the European Union, but please remember, always remember, the Parliament is a complete different stance on your right and on your achievements as a group of persons. And for that reason, you can count on us, because you are suffering. I mean, in Turkey, you are suffering as citizens, and you are suffering an added problem as women. And our view as a European Democrats is to try to send to you some oxygen, some protection in a way, some ideas. What I would like to call to you is, as Joanna said, is continue acting loud and united. And we are always having the European Parliament on your side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nacho. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you for hosting this event today. But we know this is part of a ongoing support from you and from the European Parliament for the Istanbul Convention, for an end to violence against women and girls, and also for what's happening in Turkey right now. So thank you so much. We're now going to hear from Commissioner Helena Dalli. She's the Commissioner for Equality. She can't be here in person today, but she sent us this video. and I know some of her colleagues are with us in the meeting as well. So please.
President von der Leyen was very strong in her call about the Istanbul Convention a few weeks ago during her visit in Turkey. The convention has one major aim: to ensure that gender-based violence is prevented, victims are protected, and perpetrators are prosecuted. The Istanbul Convention is a strong international recognition and engagement towards this aim, and it sets the bar high by presenting common legal standards. Signing the convention showed the common political will of the EU and its member states to support and empower women. The Istanbul Convention was the culmination of years of studies, including by civil society organizations like the European Women's Lobby, confirming the magnitude of the problem and differences in national responses across the continent. You continue to be a crucial source of information, as shown with your newly published report and recommendations to end violence against women and girls in Europe. The persistent dedication of organizations like yours and online activism contribute to raising awareness and denouncing all types of sexism, harassment, and violence online and offline. This helps, among other things, keep gender-based violence high on the political agenda. I thank you for that. But a society cannot, of course, rely solely on civil society organizations to keep it in good health or to protect its victims. Governments must invest, build, and improve. Victims should be able to rely on structures to support them, laws to protect them, and the courts to guarantee justice, regardless of governments or crisis. There must be adequate funding for shelters and crisis centers, round-the-clock free-of-charge hotlines, legislation, and access to justice for victims. The evidence in favor of the Istanbul Convention is overwhelming, as your report shows. Europe is the front-runner when it comes to measures that tackle violence against women. But not all member states are there yet. And not all women and girls enjoy the same protection and rights across Europe. This is why the Commission will keep pushing for the ratification of the Convention by EU member states. But we cannot wait any longer to overcome the obstacles and continue risking the lives of women and girls. The Commission has started its preparatory work for a legislative proposal on preventing and combating violence against women and domestic violence in the EU to be presented by the end of this year. We launched a public consultation, which will close on the 10th of May. Apart from the legislative proposal, we will keep working with member states to reinforce the rights of victims, to ensure that protective measures such as restraining orders are recognized in other member states in addition to the issuing country, to fund projects tackling gender-based violence through the EU Citizens' Values Equality Programme, to organize educational exchanges on ending violence against women and domestic violence, to collect reliable data on gender-based violence to be available in 2023. I assure you the Commission's commitment is solid. We will continue working for a Europe and a world where all women and girls, in all their diversity, can be free from violence. I thank you for your continuous support in this.
Thank you. And thank you also to Mirta and my colleagues at the EWL Secretariat for the fantastic work in pulling this event together with our colleagues from the Turkish Women's Coalition and the coordination of the European Women's Lobby from Turkey. Thanks also, I know there are some of colleagues from the European Commission and from the Cabinet of Commissioner Dalli, so I wanted to convey, please, our thanks to Commissioner Dalli for her words and more importantly for her continued support and vocal support for the Istanbul Convention. And she said that's also been very vocally supported by the President of the European Commission. So this is really, really important for all women and girls in Europe to hear, and I think especially for women and girls in Turkey who need that kind of support right now. So I am going to take us to the first panel of this event this afternoon. I don't know, maybe some people have just joined us, so I might just quickly run through some of the housekeeping again. There is interpretation between English and Turkish. There's an interpretation icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen where you can access the interpretation, because some of our speakers will be speaking in Turkish, but we also have interpretation into Turkish. Please keep yourselves on mute. You might want to switch to speaker view on the Zoom if you want to see the speakers more clearly rather than the many different icons. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll monitor that and try and put the questions to the panels. And you can put your questions in English or Turkish, because we have both colleagues from Aslihan, who's our Turkish board member, and my colleagues Claire, Adriana, and Asha, who are monitoring the question boxes in the chat box questions. So the first panel today is about the achievements in the first 10 years of the Istanbul Convention, and we have three really fantastic speakers. We're going to start with an opening keynote by İlknur Üstün, who's the coordinator of the Women's Coalition in Turkey and represents the EWL coordination for Turkey. We'll then be hearing from Claudia Luciani, from the Director of Human Dignity, Equality and Governance at the Council of Europe. And without the Council of Europe, there is no Istanbul Convention. So it's a real honor to have you here with us today, Claudia. And then Valentina Andrasek, who's a member of the European Women's Lobby Observatory on Violence Against Women from Croatia. She's also the coordinator and author of our report that we're launching today. So she will take us through the key findings of the report. So each speaker has 5 minutes to present. It's always very difficult to stop people on these webinars, so I hope that we can stick to the time available on the achievements over the first 10 years of the Istanbul Convention. So İlknur, I'm going to pass over to you now. İlknur, will you be speaking in English or in Turkish? İlknur?
I think it will be in Turkish.
I can't see İlknur.
Konuşacağım, evet.
Okay, so those of you who don't understand Turkish, you might want to try out the interpretation right now. And then İlknur, please, over to you.
Teşekkür ederim. Herkese merhaba. Tabii parçası olmaktan gurur duyduğum bir kadın hareketinin sadece Türkiye'de değil, hem Avrupa'da ve tüm dünyada toplumsal cinsiyet eşitliğinin gerçekleştirilmesi için bir tür gerçekten yemeden, içmeden, uyumadan nasıl çalıştığını en az 30 küsur yıldır tanık olan biri olarak buradayım. Ama 19 Mart'tan bugüne de hakikaten uykusuz geçen geceler halinde bir de ulus ötesi kadın yol arkadaşlarımız, kız kardeşlerimizle birlikte alıyoruz bu yolu. Ben hem Kadın Koalisyonu hem Avrupa Kadın Lobisi Türkiye Koordinatörü Koordinasyonundan İlknur. Çok teşekkür ederim bu beraberlik ve emek veren herkese. Tabii bu uykusuz gecelerde bu toplantılar her zamankinden daha da önemli. Hepimiz için eşit, şiddetsiz bir dünyanın imkanlarını yaratmak, bu doğrultuda geliştirdiğimiz araçları korumak, yaygınlaştırmak, güçlendirmek için hakikaten hayati önemde. Şiddeti durdurabilmek için önce şiddeti doğru olarak açıklamak gerekir. İstanbul Sözleşmesi şiddetin hasta erkeklerin işi, yoksulluğun, cahilliğin sonucu olmadığını, meselenin esasının eşitsizlik olduğunu güçlü bir biçimde vurgular. Yani doğru yere işaret ederek çözümün yol haritasını verir. Devletlere, hükümetlere, resmi taraflara şiddeti durdurmak, eşitliği sağlamak için yükümlülüklerini, yapmaları gerekenleri söyler. İçerdikleriyle sadece kadınlar, LGBT artılar değil, eşitsiz konumda şiddete maruz bırakılanlara şiddeti durdurmanın yolunu, yöntemini tüm açıklığıyla gösterir. Sözleşme, dünya kadınlarının şiddeti durdurmaya dair ortak sözüdür. Nasıl ki bugün kadınların sorunları dünyanın meselesi haline geldi ve bu kadınların uzun yıllara dayanan mücadeleleriyle mümkün olduysa, bugün dünya için umut yine İstanbul Sözleşmesi gibi araçları yaratan kadın mücadelesidir. Bu mücadele herkesin olmak zorundadır. Dünyanın nasıl bir yer olmasını istediğinize bağlı olarak. İnsan hakları değerlerinden uzaklaşmak ve toplumsal cinsiyet eşitliğine mesafe koymak sadece Türkiye için değil, tüm dünya için tehdit. Bu değerlerin yerini otoriterliğin almasına izin vermek ve sessiz kalmaksa dünyada kimsenin güvende olmaması demektir. Biz kadın örgütleri, LGBTİ artı örgütler, feministler, haklarımız için ve şiddete karşı dün olduğu gibi bugün de mücadele ediyoruz. Ve elbette etmeye devam edeceğiz. Ama şimdi taraf olma zamanıdır. İnsan hakları değerlerine sahip olduğunu, toplumsal cinsiyet eşitliğini savunduğunu iddia eden hiçbir kurum, yapı, kişi sessiz kalarak, topu iç hukuka atarak, tek bir grubun bile ayrımcılığa maruz bırakılmasına göz yumarak bu iddiayı sürdüremez. Bu nedenle güce teslim olmadan, insan hakları değerlerinden taviz vermeden, toplumsal cinsiyet eşitliğinden asla vazgeçmeden hepimiz için eşit, şiddetsiz bir dünya için birlikte yürümeliyiz. Bugün Türkiye'de sözleşme anında yasal mevzuata yansıdı ve bir kadına yönelik şiddetle ilgili yasa çıktı. Bunlar tam olarak uygulanmasa bile bir yasanın, bir sözleşmenin varlığı, bazı yargı kararlarına atıfta bulunulması kadınların hayatını kurtardı. Tek bir kadının bile hayatı kurtulduğunda bunu azımsamak ya da küçümsemek mümkün mü? Hayatlarımız için birlikte kurduğumuz söz, birlikte yaptığımız bir sözleşme bu. Bu nedenle İstanbul Sözleşmesi bizim, vazgeçemeyiz. Beni dinlediğiniz için çok teşekkür ederim, yol arkadaşlığınıza da.
Thank you so much, İlknur. Thanks for your powerful words, and really thanks to all of the efforts of women and girls and women's organizations in Turkey. You know that you have our full solidarity, and we're looking forward also to hearing from other sisters from Turkey today in the panels. I want to thank the interpreters as well, because I was able to experiment with the interpreters and it seemed to work really beautifully. So I hope everybody else is managing to access that as well. So we're now going to hear from the Council of Europe. So the Council of Europe is the mother of the Istanbul Convention. Claudia, I hope you're there. I know I saw you in the participants list. So Claudia Luciani is the Director of Human Dignity, Equality and Governance at the Council of Europe. And she's going to give us her perspectives on what the Istanbul Convention has achieved in its first 10 years. Claudia, over to you.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes,
good afternoon, everybody. And it's a real pleasure to be back with you. We shared some impressions, remember, some time ago, right after Turkey's withdrawal. I'm very pleased and I want to thank you and all the ones who have made this meeting possible. And I'm very happy to share with you, indeed, what are the achievements of the convention and what we see as the way ahead. Now, I must say that judging from the huge number of meetings, webinars we've had, and of course, notably this week, which is the 10th anniversary, yesterday was the 10th anniversary of the opening for signature in Istanbul of the Istanbul Convention, there is no question, there is a pre and a post Turkey's withdrawal. There are two moments. And the moment we're in now is a moment of full engagement We see it in the member states, we see it in the associations, we see it at all levels. So I think we should take full advantage of this heightened momentum for the purposes that are dear to all of us. Now, a few words about the achievements. I think there are two major achievements that are there, and we must remind ourselves. This is we say groundbreaking. I say it's a revolutionary text. Why? Because it's the first time that a private matter, what was considered a private matter, violence against women, domestic violence, is a subject of an international human rights treaty. And I say this, an underlying human rights treaty in a multilateral organization, the Council of Europe, which means that it is a first, absolute first, that a member state withdraws from a major human rights treaty after World War II. So we must recognize once more that this is a human rights treaty in its foundation, and it is part of a multilateral mechanism, which is extremely important. Now, of course, the other groundbreaking feature, it's clear to all, it is the first time that violence against women is recognized as a manifestation of unequal power relations. And of course, as soon as somebody's trying to say something different, the Istanbul Convention reminds us of this very fact and of this very link between the jure and de facto equality as a key to preventing violence against women. But of course, there are facts on the ground. This is, of course, the character of the convention and what it brings to international law and to multilateral relations. But in the states, in the country where it has been applied, it has brought clear advances. National legislations have been changed. It was mentioned just a moment ago. Definitions have been introduced. Crimes have been defined in legislations that did not see such facts as crimes. New forms of crimes have been entrenched in penal codes. Policy lines, integrated policies have been taken by member states. Services, concrete services, support services have been set up. I can go on and on. Of course, there are many, many clear facts that are there. And another important feature, of course, which is very dear to us, is the fact that the Istanbul Convention, this hasn't been said enough, is evaluated, is monitored by an independent body, the Grevio. Now, it's not only an annual visit that can evaluate the progress, but it's a constant dialogue that the evaluation body permits with the member states and inside the member states with all the actors that are involved in implementing the convention's provisions. So this is a very important novelty as well, that only very advanced human rights treaties have in the Council of Europe, that of having an independent monitoring body, which then again brings its recommendations to the member states through the Committee of the Parties, that then asks member states for action. So this is again a very important achievement of the Istanbul Convention. Another very important achievement, of course, which has been reached in the countries that are member, but not only, is the impressive networking between different actors at different levels of governance and with civil society. So this all contributes to keeping a very strong and focused attention by a number of actors in an unprecedented way. But of course, these are the achievements. They're pretty well known. What can we do now? How can we use these achievements to consolidate them and to make sure that we don't have other withdrawals? Well, the number one on our agenda, our Secretary General has been very clear, we must enlarge the circle of ratification. So right now, a lot of our focus is just on this. We have the good news of Liechtenstein that has just confirmed that they will join. We will, of course, be celebrating when the instrument is deposited with the Secretary General, but that's a new member state. So it's a very good news in a moment of difficulty that we have a new member state. We have, as you know, two new accession procedures that we're following very closely of non-Council of Europe member states. Both Tunisia and Kazakhstan have asked to accede. But now, and this is even more important, we must focus on the countries that have signed and not yet ratified. As you know, there are a number of EU member states that are in this situation. We're following very closely. We now go into the very fine grain of why is it that in some parliaments they're still hesitating to go through with the adoption. So we are really targeting the political parties. We are targeting the parliaments, the speakers of parliament, in a very concerted action between the Secretary General and the President of the Parliamentary Assembly, to make sure that we are fully aware, or they are fully aware, of what are the important advances that the Convention allows and what are the obstacles. Sometimes we realize that it's misinformation, that it is just a question of having a more genuine dialogue with the parliament. So we really are in the fine grain. The fine grain is now with some of the parliaments. There is sometimes the involvement of constitutional courts. As you know, in some countries, constitutional courts have been seized on the constitutionality of the convention or the compatibility of the convention with the constitutions. There we have a very solid basis, is the Venice Commission opinion, which of course ascertains that obviously Istanbul Convention is a Council of Europe Convention and is fully compatible with the constitutions of our member states. So we have a good basis, but of course we must wait for constitutional court opinions there where the decision or the opinion is pending. But again, we are really going into much more, let's say, much more aggressive campaigns for ratification. We also have prepared what we call the positive narrative, which builds upon the achievements so far. And it's meant to reassure, again, leaders who are questioning, or maybe in an honest way. So we have prepared a positive narrative that I'm sure can be shared, of course, with other organizations to build on the positive. There will be a specific event of our Parliamentary Assembly during their session, which is end of June, devoted to the Istanbul Convention. So again, we will have very high level and prominent speakers to again, once more, bring the message about the importance of the Convention. Of course, and as a final point, we are always very, very keen, and I'm looking forward to the debate today, to look for new ideas, new tips. The little video introductory, for instance, points to one, and I want to mention just one, the fact that we can work, and we should work more with mayors, because there are some mayors that have declared or are ready to implement the convention at the local level, even if the country has not ratified the convention. So we must explore all the available options, and we're willing to do that inside countries and across countries. So again, you can count on the Council of Europe for a very continued and firm series of actions in support of the convention. And with that, I want to thank you very much for having hosted us in this event today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claudia, and thanks for everything you're doing, and all the colleagues at the Council of Europe. I think you've really helped set out some of the incredible achievements of the Istanbul Convention so far, and also the actually quite astonishing range of actions that you are all taking as Council of Europe to really secure the ratification and implementation of Istanbul Convention. And I think, like you, we're all looking forward to hearing some innovative ideas about how to overcome the obstacles, such as that which you just mentioned around cities. So thank you again, Claudia, for being here today, and please express our thanks to all of your colleagues at the Council of Europe as well for their continued work. It's always a pleasure as the European Women's Lobby to work with you on this and on other matters. As I said earlier, we published a report as the European Women's Lobby that was done with our Observatory on Violence Against Women, which is a group of experts from throughout Europe who come together and really work to strategize and campaign for our work on ending male violence against women and girls. And the focus of the Observatory has really been around the signature, ratification and implementation of Istanbul Convention. So the report really looks at what has been achieved and what the obstacles are, and what set out some recommendations for next steps as well. So I'm really delighted to welcome Valentina Andrasek, who's our observatory member from Croatia, and who coordinated and authored the report. Valentina, I hope you're there.
Yes. Hello.
Great. Over to you. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Joanna. Hello, everyone. Hello to all the wonderful and brave women from Turkey. And of course, also my colleagues from the observatory, the amazing experts that have worked on this report. So it's a big challenge to try to present it in 5 minutes, but I will try, and I invite you all to read the whole report. And this report really grew out of the work of 5 working hubs of the EWL Observatory. We each had a task to look deeply into one of the topics related to the ratification and implementation of the Istanbul Convention. So they included campaigning for the Istanbul Convention, including the backlash against it, child custody, consequences of a gender-neutral approach, feminist analysis of reservations, and Grevio shadow reporting. So it is the result of 2 years of intense work, which included consultations, a very long and detailed survey and analysis of the EWL members' shadow reports to Grevio, as well as Grevio evaluation reports. So what we found, and I will probably repeat some things from the previous presentation, is that one of the most relevant outcomes of the Istanbul Convention is how effective it really is in instigating change and progress in the countries where it is ratified, and often in the span of just a few years. So if we look at key achievements in the first 10 years of the Istanbul Convention, or really since 2014, when it came into effect, we can see positive developments across 4 pillars of the convention. With 96% of the countries analyzed have made substantive improvements to their policies and legislation relating to combating violence against women and girls. 83% of the countries have improved protection services for women victims of violence. Improvements in investigations and prosecution are visible in 65% of the countries. And in 60% of the countries, there have been intensified efforts to prevent violence against women and girls. So these are really amazing achievements in just a short span of time. However, there is always a however. The analysis further shows that there are also some persisting obstacles in eliminating violence against women and girls, and that we need to do further work to fully address the structural causes of violence against women and domestic violence, particularly where laws are written or implemented in a gender-neutral way. So we also found that there is a strong trend towards blaming the victims in 91% of the countries. Family conflict approach is used in 74% of the countries. Discrimination and re-victimization of women victims of violence, especially intimate partner violence, remains a persistent obstacle. So there is still work to be done. And also, as you all know, but I will just briefly mention it, since 2017, we have seen a growing backlash in several countries against the convention, which is part of a wider regression on gender equality and women's rights. Unfortunately, as we are here today, we know that this backlash has not gone away, but has actually intensified. Even in Croatia 2 days ago, there was talk about withdrawing the signature and ratification still. So in all of these countries, the opponents to the convention are not only conservative forces and religious groups, but also political parties ranging from extreme right-wing populist to center-left populist parties. In Bulgaria, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, and Turkey, there is opposition from the government itself or party that is governing the coalition. So what we know, of course, is that they use misleading arguments and false interpretations of the Istanbul Convention across the region, which have permeated into the public discourse and also within state institutions. So there has been damage that has been done, even in the countries that have ratified the convention because of all this backlash. So furthermore, in implementation of the Istanbul Convention, there is a need to develop positive actions to address the specific needs of women that are made vulnerable by particular circumstances or are exposed to multiple forms of discrimination, including women of color, women with disabilities, migrant women and girls, undocumented migrant women, and women on the move fleeing to or settling in Europe. Online space has been recognized as a facilitator of all forms of violence against women and girls, and we need to take that into account when we go into further implementation of the Istanbul Convention. And finally, in building on the specific forms of violence listed in the Istanbul Convention, it's imperative that prostitution and obstetric and reproductive violence are recognized as part of the continuum of male violence against women and girls. And to try to end, I know my 5 minutes are up. There are many recommendations, very detailed in the report, but let me just state the two main things that according to us from the observatory need to be done now, which is immediately exceed or ratify the Istanbul Convention by all EU member states and on the EU level, as well as adopt a comprehensive legislative and policy framework on preventing and combating all forms of violence against women and girls. And in the end, we all know that COVID-19 has exposed just how terrible a situation is for women and girls. And we need to recognize that our current responses have been insufficient and that we need to step up our efforts to ensure not only adequate realization of the provision of the Istanbul Convention, but to go even further and bring an end to systematic violence against women and girls. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Valentina, for all of your work and for bringing also the voice representing the Observatory on Violence Against Women, which is a really powerful group of exchange, of learning, of sisterhood, of solidarity, and most importantly, of impact. And it's great to hear from our three speakers ways in which the Istanbul Convention has made a concrete difference when it comes to legislation, action, funding, also mindset actually shift when it comes to tackling male violence against women and girls, notwithstanding all the obstacles and challenges that are still ahead. So I want to just remind you that we are recording this session, so it's streaming on our YouTube channel. That's a helpful reminder to please also mute if you are not one of the speakers. The recording will be available. People are watching it now live, so hello if you're on the live stream. We'll also be keeping the video there, so if you want to follow it again, or if you have to leave early, you can follow it through that through that channel. So I also want to remind you, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat. We are monitoring that. I see there's already one question around data and proof and evidence. But first, I'm going to ask to hear some testimony from two of our members, from Laura Albu from the Romanian Women's Lobby, who's also our vice president, and then from Sema Kendirci, the head of the EWL Turkey Secretariat as well. So Laura, I hope you're there. If you could put your video on, switch your mic off, and we'd love to hear. Hello, Laura. Please,
hello,
we'd love to hear from you about the situation in Romania.
Yeah, hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here. I know I have only 2 minutes, and I was looking on what will be the major things Romania has changed after ratification of the Istanbul Convention, beside the law, because everybody talked about the law. And I want just to underline 3 things which I think are special and are important to us and change the lives of many women and girls in Romania. One is the introduction in 2019, following the modification of law of the Emergency Protection Order, which actually changed the paradigm. We don't have many services available in Romania, and after introduction of this Emergency Protection Order, police officers were able to assess the risk immediately and take out the aggressor. So, which was like a kind of an average of 10,000 male aggressors taking out of their homes after the violence has occurred, which never happened before. The second very important change which happened, it was that we are proud that beside all the classical definition of domestic violence and violence against women, we were able to introduce last year cyber violence, which is something quite new for documentation of the online harassment and online violence which is perpetrated by the aggressors towards the women and girls, and which is kind of new things. And the third and the last thing I will mention, it's not only this, but in 2 minutes I want to show you the new things which happened, are the fact that now the most recent development are the modification according to the Istanbul Convention, how children, girls and boys are seen not as necessarily, if they are witnessing domestic violence, they will be treated as victims, not just witness. And also all the protection which Istanbul Convention is, and that has a very big impact also on the custody things, because protection order is covering the entire family, so the mother with the children. So I know that's only 2 minutes, but that's big change for us. A lot of other things have changed in better. So for the question on the chat, no, the violence is not decreasing because of Istanbul Convention, but the data collection on violence is increasing. And that's a good thing, because also the trust of women that they can report is increasing. So we hope in the future that that will lead to decrease. But for the moment, we are very happy. We have more cases, so that means more trust. Thank you. And we are with you, with Turkey and Poland and all the countries who are facing challenges these days. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Laura, and for those really concrete examples of things that are changing. I think that really helps understand the impact of the Istanbul Convention in Romania and many other countries, but also on the actual lives of families that are experiencing male violence. And thanks for tackling the question also. I think maybe our other panelists might want to come back on that. So I'm now going to hand over to Sema Kendiritsi, who's the head of the European Women's Lobby Turkey Secretariat. Sema, are you going to speak in Turkish? Understand the impact of the Istanbul Convention in Romania and many other countries, also on the actual life. Tackling the question. Oh, so I think maybe our other panelists want to come back. So we have.
Evet.
So there we are. Sema, over to you. Sema, will you be speaking in Turkish?
Mikrofonum açık.
Yeah.
Tamamsa. Çok teşekkür ederim. Bugünkü toplantıda ve bundan önce yaptığımız bütün toplantılarda bu birlikteliklerin Türkiye'deki biz kadınlara çok büyük güç verdiğini öncelikle söylemek isterim. Teşekkür ederiz. Biz Türkiye'de İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin hazırlık aşamasından Türkiye'de imzalanması ve ondan sonraki bütün aşamalarının da içinde bulunduk. Çok yakından takip edebildik ve Türkiye'de İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin en büyük kazancı ailenin korunması ve kadına yönelik şiddetin önlenmesine dair 6284 sayılı yasanın hayata geçmesi oldu. Bir yasamız vardı şiddetle mücadele noktasında, fakat son derece yetersizdi. Ama 6284 sayılı yasa İstanbul Sözleşmesi'ne atıfta bulunarak hazırlandı ve şiddetle mücadeleyi büyük ölçüde kurumsallaştırmaya çalışan bir yasa oldu. Nasıl yapıldı bunlar? Ve tabii önce şunu belirtmek isterim. Bu yasanın hazırlanması ve yazımına kadar her aşamasında biz kadın örgütlerinin temsilcileri olarak içinde bulunduk. Yasanın yazımında bulunduk. Ve koruyucu ve önleyici tedbirlerin öncelikle son derece geniş olarak yer almasını sağladık. Bunun devamında bunun bütün her yerde şiddetle mücadelede önemli olduğunu düşünüyorum. Bir şiddet hukukunda bir şiddetin meydana gelmesi sırasında herhangi bir delil ve belge aranmaksızın gerekli önlemlerin alınması hususunda yine 6284 sayılı yasada yer aldı. Çok daha önemli bir nokta, bu yasayla kurumlar arası koordinasyon ve eğitimin hayata geçirilmesi öngörülüyor. Tabii koruyucu mekanizmalar da, destek mekanizmaları da bu yasayla öngörüldü. Hep ısrarla söylüyorum, kadın örgütleri konuda zaten çok yapıcı maddelerin girmesini sağladılar. Şiddet önleme ve izleme merkezleri 6284 sayılı yasada bütün Türkiye'ye yaygın olarak açılması noktasında amir hüküm getirdi. Peki şiddet önleme ve izleme merkezlerinin işlevi ne olacaktı? Şiddete maruz kalan kadın ve çocukların çok kısa zamanda destek almalarını sağlamak amacıyla bütün Türkiye'ye yaygın bir biçimde açılmaları öngörülmüş. Tabii yasa birçok iyi ve geniş hükümleri var ama bence şunu da açıklamak gerekiyor. İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin 2012 yılında Türkiye'de yürürlüğe girdiği tarihten itibaren kadın örgütleri hem İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin hem 6284 sayılı yasanın uygulanması, öğrenilmesi, yaygınlaşması için çok büyük kampanyalar başlattılar ve halen bunlar devam ediyor. Ama 2014 yılından itibaren, yani İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin yürürlüğe girdiği tarihten itibaren de bütün kurumlara, bütün yargı mercilerine ve bundan sorumlu yerel yönetimler ve mülki amirlikler nezdinde de İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin hayata geçmesi projelerini geniş Türkiye üstünde, geniş alanlarda yaygın bir biçimde sürdürülmesi için halen devam ediyorlar. Tabii bugün gelinen noktada şunu belki tehlike olarak hemen söylemek isterim. Evet, iyi bir yasa hayata geçti. Bu yasa İstanbul Sözleşmesi'ne atıfta bulunuluyor ama 19 Mart itibariyle sözleşmeden imzanın çekilmesi eylemi 6284 sayılı yasayı da bunu istemeyenlerin hedefine koymuş durumda ve giderek belki SEDA biçimiyle bir tehlike söz konusu olabilir. Endişesi içindeyiz. Bu endişeyi ortadan kaldırmak için de mücadelemize ve İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır. 6284 sayılı yasa mutlaka uygulanmalıdır sloganlarımızdan vazgeçmiyoruz. Çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you, Sema. Really wonderful to have you here with us today and for sharing your perspectives as well. Thank you so much, Sema. I think we had one question during this session, which Laura already gave a response to, but I wanted to see whether any of the other panelists, perhaps Valentina, you'd like to have a go at this. The question was, is there any decrease in domestic or other violence against women after the ratification of the Istanbul Convention in Europe? Do we have any concrete statistics or evidence? I don't know, Valentina, whether you could say something perhaps about the decrease, or the statistics actually might be quite interesting to hear from you about. Are you there, Valentina?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for the question. Yes, we haven't researched as observatory. This research didn't include, doing a prevalence study. That would be too big. And it's also maybe quite early to talk about the decrease in violence against women after these actually 5 years of implementation. And I agree with Laura, what she said. I think first, we would like to see an increase in the number of reports. So it may seem paradoxical, but if we see an increase in number of reported violence, that means progress, because we know from all the research from Fundamental Rights Agency research from 2012, that women do not report violence. The violence is severely underreported, less than 20%, and in some countries, less than 10% of women actually report violence. So first, we want to build that trust, and actually decreasing violence is a very, very long process. But what we can say, what we have looked at, what is across the 4 pillars, what have been the improvements. And nearly all the countries improved their legislation as a result of ratifying the Istanbul Convention, because when you commit to it, you have to change it. And what Sema was saying, I think, I mean, I am familiar from another research with the Turkish law, which is actually one of the best laws on protecting women from domestic violence. And that was passed right after the Istanbul Convention was signed and was passed. So Turkey was actually a leader there, and we need to look at how important Istanbul Convention is. For example, 13 countries have amended or are in the process of amending the criminal legislation on the definition of sexual violence and rape, so that it can be based on lack of consent rather than the use of force. This is a huge achievement, because we have been lobbying for this for years and years. But after you ratify the convention, the governments have to do it. So this is very important. Protection services, setting up shelters, putting increased funding towards shelters, opening up new shelters, opening up helplines, sexual violence referral centers, rape crisis centers, all of these things, we see an improvement, which should lead first to women coming forward and having the trust, and then violence decreasing. That will, I think, take longer, because if we look at, sexual harassment, that in Sweden, 84% of women say they have been sexually harassed. And I think it's Bulgaria, but I'm not sure. I think it's 8%. So do we really think that women are more sexually harassed in Sweden? No, it's less accepted. So first we want numbers to increase before we can truly decrease them. So yes, it may be too early to talk about the decrease of violence, especially I have to mention COVID. I think we can for a while forget about any decrease, because we know that violence has actually increased, that it has become more brutal in all the countries where there has been research done, and it had to be done quickly and sort of ad hoc because of the situation. We see that violence has increased through isolation, through psychological violence, through rape, through women not having access to the police, not having access to services. So right now we are dealing with a whole new problem. But what we have seen is that after the ratification, these things, they improve. The services, the laws, the protection, they all improve. And we need to safeguard the Istanbul Convention, because if we allow people to talk against it, then what we have also seen is that institutions don't take it seriously, even if it has been ratified. So we need to really defend it. Sorry for a very long answer.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Valentina. I think it's really, really very strong and powerful point. I know that İlknur also wanted to come in briefly on that question. İlknur.
Valentina'ya bir ek olarak, çünkü o çok detaylı anlattığı zaman sınırımız da var. İki şey söylemek istiyorum. Bir, güvenilir veri ve kayıt sisteminin varlığı bu durumun gerçekliğini ortaya koymada son derece önemli. Ancak biz güvenilir ve sağlıklı bir kayıt sistemi, veri sistemine henüz eriştiğimizi söyleyemeyeceğim. Kadın örgütlerinin ve bu konuda toplumsal cinsiyet eşitliği hedefi olan Biyanet gibi bazı yerlerin tuttuğu kayıtlar var. Bu süre içerisinde düştüğünü söylemek biraz zor. Ancak şöyle bir tehlike var önümüzde. Sözleşmeden çekilme kararıyla birlikte Türkiye'de İçişleri Bakanı Türkiye'de bir açıklama yaparak kadına yönelik şiddet düştü dedi. Yani bunu aslında sözleşme olmasa bile şiddeti düşürüyoruz paravanı biçiminde sundu. Bu çok tehlikeli çünkü elimizde veri yok. Eğer karakola gitmiş ya da mahkemeye başvurmuş kadınların kayıtları alınmıyor, geri çevriliyorsa o zaman şiddet düşmüyor. Başvuran kadınlar çaresiz bırakılıyor demektir. İkinci söyleyeceğim şey de aslında Türkiye'deki çekilme kararı ve şu anda İstanbul Sözleşmesi için bu nedenle yapılan kampanyalar 10 yıldır yaratamadığımız etkiyi bir ay içerisinde yarattı neredeyse. Çok güçlü bir etkisi oldu. Şu anda herkes İstanbul Sözleşmesi'ni biliyor ve konuşuyor. O açıdan belki bundan sonrası hayrımıza olacak bir geri dönüşe gider. Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you, Ilknur. The hope that comes from the dark sometimes. I think you're right. So I want to thank everybody on the first panel. If we can give them like a virtual round of applause, if you know how to use the reactions. I also want to thank Nacho Sanchez, the MEP who is hosting us today. He's now about to leave us. So thank you again, Nacho, for hosting us today and for all your continued support. And thanks to all of the panelists and speakers in the first round. So thank you. I'm going to move on now to the second panel. So you have to, second panelists, get ready. Again, just informing you that there is interpretation option button at the bottom. If you have questions, please put them in the chat box. Don't forget to tweet Istanbul Saves Lives, hashtag Istanbul Convention, and also share what's going on here on your social media feeds and Twitter. So the second panel, we're looking at the obstacles. I saw one of the last comments in the chat was about conservatism and fundamentalism as a key obstacle. But here we're going to really look at how do we overcome the obstacles to the full implementation of the convention in Europe. So we're going to hear from an academic perspective, we're going to hear from some of our members, we're going to look at Turkey's decision and also the dynamics in Poland. But first, I'm really, really happy to welcome the chair of the European Parliament FAM Committee, the Women's Rights Committee, Evelyn Regner, who is a fantastic champion of women's rights, the rights of women and girls in the European Parliament, and has been tirelessly and vocally loud in support of the Istanbul Convention and of European action and legislative action to end violence against women and girls. So, Evelyn, I believe you're here somewhere. And I'd like to hand over to you if you can just unmute yourself and speak.
Yes, I did that. Thank you, Joanna. So I hope you can see me right now. We're so many participants, so we have to look around a little bit.
We can hear you, we can see you. And it's a good thing to remind people they can go to speaker view in their Zoom if they want to see just the speaker. So go ahead, Evelyn. Thank you for everything.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joanna, for this. I really say so much thank you, positive introductory words right now. Great pleasure to be with you here this afternoon, and also to see how many great women I can see right now here on the screen. So looking very much forward to our exchange, to our debates, and therefore I hope I won't be too long for my introductory words. So as Joanna already said, I have the honor to chair the Committee of Women's Rights and Gender Equality in the European Parliament, which is really a huge, not only honor, but also a huge pleasure, because there are so gorgeous, strong women, and I can tell you also feminist men, a couple of them, with whom we really work very closely cross-border in order to push gender equality and women's rights. So concerning everything around the Istanbul Convention, violence against women is an issue. And for so many years, decades, of course, it always existed, but it was pushed out of the public debate. So when we are talking in these days so much about violence against women, then it is also because it became a topic we really spit out, we exchange, we really not only talk and collect figures, but also we do something against it. And we know during the Corona crisis, violence was going up like this. And now we're at this absurd situation that we have more than ever the necessity that the Istanbul Convention is not only ratified, but applied, monitored, really lived, and has a strong reality and is really practiced. And on the other side, this backlash is taking place. Violence going up, and then there are these pushbacks and all this backlash that there are more and more governments putting on the question if they would like to ratify the Istanbul Convention or even stepping back. So talking about within the European Union on Hungary and Poland, and what sadly happened at the Porto summit last weekend when Orban and the peace regime said, no, they don't want to have the word gender equality even in the Istanbul Convention. So we know at least 30% violence was going up in the European Union during the Corona crisis. And I say at least because sometimes we don't have the appropriate figures. So we have the fantastic EIGE, Institute for Gender Equality, who is collecting data and doing an extremely great work. And then when we're just looking country by country, then we see sometimes we have some countries where it's getting so silent. Just say one example from a country which are really appreciate very much what the government is doing there in Portugal, where they said originally, the policemen, they said, it's strange. They thought the violence is going up, and then they don't have so much report at the police because it seems, is there something that women are ashamed going to the police? Don't they even dare to go out of the house? What is happening there? And then parallelly, they had to check where it was realized that the online searches in the internet, looking for helplines and all this was going up extremely high. So there is something behind. We also don't know, even in those countries we already have reported quite well, that violence was going up. So this is the situation as it is. I don't go so much further because this is all what you already have exchanged and are doing. What I would like to report right now is the way out, the solutions, what we are doing in the European Union and where we could be contagious, closely working together in order to improve the situation of those women suffering under violence. First of all, of course, we need financial support for women's shelters. We need gender-based violence to become a Euro crime, and we need a EU regulation that is mandatory for all members. So starting with the ratification of Istanbul Convention, we know, I just mentioned right now these terrible regimes from Poland, Hungary, they always talk about gender ideology. We know it's not about ideology, it's about identity and all this, you know that. What is important to be said is there is a way out. We, the European Parliament, we went to the European Court of Justice and asked, is it possible that the European Union as such, so altogether European Union as union, is ratifying the Istanbul Convention, even when countries like Hungary and Poland, for example, and some others don't want to do that? Is it possible that we do that in a procedure of majority and not unanimity? So we went to the European Court of Justice, and the General Advocate already said, yes, it is possible. So normally, of course, we have to wait right now for the final decision for the European Court of Justice. And when the final decision, and hopefully it will be like the General Advocate stated already, normally, not always, but most of the times, the European Court of Justice is following the General Advocate. And we hope very much that this decision will come, and that this decision could give a boost, because the Commission of the Commission's President Ursula von der Leyen, and also of course Commissioner Dalli in the European Parliament, we really want that so much. And even if it's not happening, there is the plan B, and that's always the sign to all those countries. I mean, we will do better. So when you go low, we go high, and we really do that. That there is this plan B, to have a legislative package on fighting against violence. And this is something the European Commissioner Dalli, with Gender Equality Strategy, already really is pushing very much forward. So what we want to do is ratification jointly as European Union of the Istanbul Convention, even with those without those countries who are protesting still until now, and then to go really for a legislative package to help women suffering under violence. And this will come. And what does it comprise? To extend the number of Euro crimes. What does that mean? Violence against women is as a systematic breach of human rights, because women's rights are human rights, to put under the definition as Euro crimes, which means there is a far better cooperation and comparison within the member states possible afterwards, so that we really get those facts and figures really to fight femicides and all sort of violence taking place. So a huge undertaking, and also to attack legislatively. One issue where it absolutely makes sense that we are going for European Union legislation, and I think always I'm saying that with so much positive energy, because that should be contagious. We would like as many as possible governments all over the world also tackling these issues, and this is cyber violence. Cyber violence is really something women are extremely suffering. That can be women in politics, women in undertakings, privately, all sort of women, especially also those with migrant background, for example. Sometimes one is attacked simply because of the name, or I mean, you know, all those reasons. So many European Union countries don't even have a legislation to better protect women at the national level so far, because this is such a new phenomenon. When you know the surveys in the USA and there's the anonymous perpetrator. But what we already know is from figures and facts we had, that normally cyber violence is going hand in hand also with the classic analog violence. So it is often partners, ex-partners, brothers, or whatever family members who are putting under stress and mobbing and bullying and doing harm on women, taking away their mobile or posting something or whatever. So somehow really harassing women, and then doing it also in an analog way. So it has to be closely linked together. And this is the other legislative project we are demanding from our Commission in the European Union, and that for sure will also come. It is already promised, indicated several times, not only at the occasion of the International Women's Day. So to sum up, it is important to answer and to do something directly in the Istanbul Convention to strengthen it, to invest the money. We have this Recovery and Resilience Fund that is right now pumped into the member state, and that should also strengthen the position of women in an economic, independent way. So to fight all these bogus self-employment platform work and all this, what makes women small and less able to resist to this men's violence. And of course, to the measures that I've mentioned right now, a package on cyber violence and putting women's violence against women under the list of Euro crimes. So this is in very nutshell what we're doing at the European Union level. And of course, we would seek to cooperate so much with you and to have you on board as well. And I think all this altogether strengthens women's efforts to fight violence, and also gives a boost to the Istanbul Convention as such.
Thank you so much, Evelyn Ragnar. Thanks for your really continued and vocal support for Istanbul Convention, and also all the measures that the EU can take to address and end male violence against women and girls. Thank you for all your work, and thanks for being here today as well.
So simply before you give the word to others, I just simply would also like to add, not only what a pleasure, what an absolute necessity, importance it is to work with you in the Women's Lobby and to have you as a strong partner on board at all the files we are doing, because we are really covering women's world, and this is so manifold, so many issues where we share the joint work, and also reaching out for all women. I mean, it's a social question, it's a question of identity, it's a question of violence. I mean, we're somehow covering a whole world of issues, and therefore I also express my big thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Indeed, there are many areas which we work on together, and the issue of women's rights is the way in which all of these issues are intertwined. And the issue of violence is such an essential part of the way in which women are kept silent and excluded from full participation in society. I think I'm really glad particularly you raised the issue of money, because I think the issue of funding for the implementation of Istanbul Convention, but also EU funding through the recovery funds, I think is a real opportunity and potential. So we're going to hear now from our sister from Turkey, Huriye Karabatak, who's from the Women's Coalition of Turkey. Huriye, are you there? And I want to hand over the floor to you and invite participants, I guess, to switch to the translation function.
Yes, I will speak in Turkish.
Over to you. Thank you.
Herkese merhabalar. Ankara'dan, Kadın Koalisyonu'ndan Avukat Huriye Karabacak ben. Toplantıyı düzenleyen ve katılan herkese teşekkür ediyorum. Benden önce de ifade edildiği gibi toplumsal cinsiyet temelli şiddetle mücadele, kadınların, feministlerin ve LGBTİ artıların tüm dünyada köyden kente, evlerden sokaklara, karakollardan mahkemelere, her yerde, her alanda mücadelesiyle bugünlere geldi. Ve bu mücadelenin yasal alandaki en önemli kazanımlarından birisi de İstanbul Sözleşmesi. İlk oturumda konuşan Claudia Luciano'nun da ifade ettiği gibi kadına yönelik şiddet ve ayrımcılık ile tarihsel toplumsal cinsiyet eşitsizliği arasındaki ilişkiden söz eden ve devletlerin toplumlarını bu yönde değiştirmesini talep eden ilk sözleşme olan İstanbul Sözleşmesi, bu eşitsizlik üzerine kurulmuş tabii tüm bir sistemi rahatsız etti. Ve Türkiye'de biz özellikle son 6 yıldır insan hakları ve hukuk devleti alanında yaşadığımız radikal gerilemeye bir de pandemi eklenince bu uygun ortamdan yararlanan siyasi iktidar dünyada benzeri görülmemiş bir şekilde kendi ev sahipliği yaptığı ve ilk imzacısı olduğu bir insan hakları sözleşmesinden kolaylıkla çıktığını ilan etti. Bu adım tabii sadece Türkiye'de dönük tehlikeler yaratmıyor. Benden önceki oturumda Sema Kendirci, Türkiye'de bu alanda kadına yönelik şiddetle mücadele için çıkarılmış olan tek düzenleme olan 6284 sayılı kadına yönelik şiddetin önlenmesine dair kanunundan bahsetti. Bu adım sadece bu kanunun uygulanması bakımından değil, Avrupa İnsan Hakları Sözleşmesi'nin uygulanması bakımından ve tüm dünyada kadın insan hakları mücadelesinin anayasası olan 40 yıllık SEDAV'ın uygulanması bakımından da çok ciddi bir tehdit olduğunu düşünüyoruz biz. Öte yandan bugün dünyanın her tarafında çalışan bağımsız kadın örgütleri, LGBTİ artı örgütleri ya da insan hakları savunucuları tehlike altında. SEDAV'ın ve diğer belgelerin güç durumdaki kadınlar listesine bizler de eklendik. Bu listenin uzayıp gitmemesi için bu nedenle bağımsız kadın örgütleri ve insan hakları savunucularının korunması ve desteklenmesi ve bu faaliyetlerinin sürdürülebilmesi için onlara dokunulmazlık sağlayacak bağlayıcı yasal uluslararası düzenlemelerin de devreye sokulması gerektiğini düşünüyoruz biz. Yine şu anda takip ettiğimiz en önemli mekanizmalardan biri olan Venedik Komisyonu, Venedik Komisyonu'na Avrupa Konseyi sözleşmelerinde onaylama ve fesih usulleriyle görüş istenmesi çok önemli bir adım bu komisyondan. Zira bir ülkenin uluslararası teamül hukukuna ve aynı zamanda kendi iç hukukuna aykırı bir şekilde bir insan hakları sözleşmesinden çekilmesi doğal olarak uluslararası hukukunda denetimine tabi olmalı. Bu yüzden Venedik Komisyonu'nun yapacağı yorum çok çok önemli olacak. Zira insan hakları, toplumsal cinsiyet eşitliği, salt ülkelerin iç hukukuna bırakılacak yerel bir mesele değil. Pandemi döneminde de iyice görünür olduğu ve arttığı üzere insan hakları ve eşitsizlik tablosu yerelde olduğu kadar küreselde de ortak mücadelenin önemini ve gerekliliğini iyice ortaya çıkardı diye düşünüyoruz. Bu bağlamda son olarak şunu eklemek istiyorum. İnsan hakları gibi işte sözleşmelerin, İstanbul Sözleşmesi gibi sözleşmelerin kaderi tek bir devlete bırakılamayacağı gibi bizce burada örneğin ilk imzayı atan, ev sahipliği yapan bir ülkenin tek başına bu sözleşmeden çıkma yetkisi yoktur. Bunu tespit etmelidir uluslararası mekanizmalar. Zira tüm sözleşme ilişkilerinin temelinde pacta sunt servanda ya da ahde vefa dediğimiz Türkçe'de ilkesi bulunur. Buna göre bir aktin sona ermesi tüm tarafların rızasına bağlıdır. Sözleşmeyi yapan sözünü tutmalıdır. Ticari ilişkiler ve çıkarlar söz konusu olduğunda milletler arası tahkimde birbiriyle savaş halinde dahi olan ülkeler arasında sıkı sıkıya uygulanan bu kuralın İnsan hakları alanında uygulanmaması için hiçbir sebep yoktur ve bunun için bir an önce harekete geçilmelidir. Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Herkese iyi toplantılar.
Thank you so much, Huriye. Really, really powerful words. And I think people are also really interested in having that update about what is happening in Turkey and the impact actually of the withdrawal. So thank you very much, and thanks for being here today. It's really wonderful to see you. And we are now going to pass to our next speaker, who is our board member from Poland, Gosia Tarasiewicz. Gosia, I hope you're there with us. We're very curious to hear what is happening in Poland. We keep hearing lots of rumours about the Polish government withdrawing or threatening to withdraw. And I think it's really important that we hear from you as president of the Network of East-West Women and our board member from Poland. So Gosia, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this important conference. And as you said, I would like to speak about the obstacles in Poland to put the whole situation in the Polish context. And from what I would like to say, you will see that Poland may follow Turkey very, very soon, unfortunately. And really, it's not possible to know when it will happen, but it may happen even tomorrow or next week. The situation is very difficult because the government can consider any moment politically appropriate to withdraw from the convention. And there is already an act that would allow to do it in the parliamentary commissions. And this act was submitted and supported by fundamentalist organizations. And also the Constitutional Tribunal may decide that the convention is unconstitutional. And this can also practically happen at any time. Also, the Polish authorities want to propose alternative treaty on saving traditional families. And actually, they proposed it already to some countries. What is also very dangerous for the situation is that the conservative politicians are all the time very active in the media and also in the campaigning against the convention. And the Minister of Justice personally is involved in anti-convention activities. He speaks in the media openly against the convention. So the situation is, as you see, really very, very bad, and I wouldn't be surprised that that Poland will withdraw very soon from the convention, and then we will, like Turkey, seek your support and solidarity. And I was thinking about the way to help ease this situation. And I think that the most important thing that we can, one of the most important things that we can do is raising awareness among the public, the media, and the institutions about the danger of some countries not only not implementing the convention, but withdrawing from it. This could be done by bringing all the relevant actors together, including international organizations, national decision makers, and civil society. And I think that organizations like the European Women's Lobby have a big role to play in bringing together politicians and civil society, like at today's conference. It is very important to be visible in campaigning and advocacy around the Istanbul Convention, in order to raise awareness of its objectives and ensuring that Istanbul Convention is implemented. And there have been already campaigns and activities like this, like 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, or a European Women's Lobby campaign, Act Against Rape, use the Istanbul Convention. These are very good examples of such campaigning, and they should continue. Such campaigns show the society in our countries, but also the authorities, that if they withdraw from the convention, they actually act against women's rights. Because at the moment, the authorities say that they act against colonialism, cultural colonialism, against gender, and that's why they propose they offer to introduce their own treaty on traditional family rights. So we have to make sure to show that they are acting against women's rights, and all those actions are directed at reduction and even destruction of women's basic rights. And I would like to add that I liked very much the idea that already was proposed during today's conference, to work with the local authorities, because I think that at the city levels, with the city councils, with the mayors of the cities, it's also important to get them as allies of the convention, and to support our activities at the local level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gosia, for the update from Poland, also for all of the work that you do, and all the sisters in Poland. I'm sure you can please pass on our solidarity and support. Also, I think really interesting to hear your suggestions about what we can do to overcome some of the resistance and opposition. I think both in terms of, particularly around communications, and how we communicate the actual real purpose and impact of the Istanbul Convention. I think that's something that needs definitely more work and elaboration. So thank you, Gosia. Thanks for being here today with us. And now I'm going to take us to our next speaker, who is Professor Sara Davido. She's a university professor from Venice. Are you there, Sara?
Hi, hello.
Yes, hi, Sara. So we were just, as we were preparing for this meeting earlier, our communications officer, Adriana, who's busily working behind the scenes today, said that she had taken a course with you at university. So you see,
really?
the impact you have is everywhere. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Sara. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much, Joanna, for the kind introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much to European Women's Lobby, Women's Coalition Turkey, and Coordination of European Women's Lobby for Turkey for the invitation and for the commitment in countering violence against women in Europe. Thanks also to the speakers that preceded me for their insightful perspective. And I will continue a bit what Evelyn Regner was saying before about the role of the European Union in countering violence against women and domestic violence, to look into potential legal basis. And in the end, I will support the idea that more European Union action is needed. As it has been said, actually the pandemic has exacerbated already existing patterns of discrimination rooted in the society and in the tolerance showed by authorities towards episodes of gender-based violence against women. So obviously the action to counter violence against women was needed before the pandemic, but it is even more necessary these days. Well, the protection of women from gender-based violence is neither enshrined in the European Union treaties nor in the Charter of Fundamental Rights, a fact that is not preventing the European Union from taking some action. Soft laws, binding acts, such as the Victims' Rights Directive, to counter the offences related to violence against women. The Council of Europe Istanbul Convention expressly paves the way for the European Union accession. And exactly 4 years ago, on the 11th of May, 2017, we had two council decisions on the signature, not the ratification, on behalf of the European Union of the Istanbul Convention. However, those two decisions were really limited to some aspects of the convention. Judicial cooperation in criminal matters, Article paragraph 1 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, and the aspect of asylum and non-refoulement, Article 78, paragraph 2 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. So in this way, the two decisions failed to grasp the holistic approach and the complexity of the Istanbul Convention. The European Parliament has already been mentioned, also the FEM committee has done a lot of studies, but the European Parliament has repeated the importance of the accession to the Istanbul Convention by the European Union. Parliament has called on the Council to urgently conclude the European ratification of the Istanbul Convention, waiting for several years now. And also, it has strongly condemned the attempts in some member states to revoke measures that had already been taken to counter violence against women. It has also stressed the importance of the Istanbul Convention as an international standard and called on the Commission to revise the European Framework Decision. It also stressed the importance of working gender identity and sex characteristics. And then we have already been mentioned 2021, 2025, and that's very important because even absent the European Union accession to the Istanbul Convention, the Commission intends to propose several measures, obviously within the limits of European Union competence, to achieve the same objective as before by Evelyn, that is this view of extending the European level to specific forms of gender-based violence according with Article 83 of the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union. Something that was repeated also in the Inception Impact Assessment of the European Commission in December 2020. And there were different scenarios that actually with the staff of European Women's Lobby, we discussed a lot last year because I had the privilege to work with the staff of European Women's Lobby on these legal bases and standards. And one of the scenarios is the holistic legislative initiative on preventing and combating gender-based violence and domestic violence. This is really huge. So a legislative initiative on preventing and combating gender-based violence against women and domestic violence, a comprehensive approach. Well, at European level, it is true that there are significant differences that exist among member states in the criminalization of behaviors that can amount to gender-based violence against women. And European Union law has proved to be a catalyst in the adoption of new domestic laws. For example, in the case of the Gender Equality Directive, despite the limits of the directives themselves, but the EU can really make the difference. And while working with the European Women's Lobby, we discussed a lot about legal basis. And obviously, the best option is Article 83, paragraph 1 of the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union. So to include gender-based violence against women among the areas of crime under this article, the definition of gender-based violence against women has consolidated at international level, and it is present in the Istanbul Convention. So gender-based violence against women can become an area of crime. However, the political part, not the legal one, but the political part is that this clause requires the unanimity in the Council. And also this article refers to particularly serious crime with a cross-border dimension, resulting from the nature or not end or the impact or from a special need to combat them on a common basis. Well, whether this covers all forms of violence against women, as I believe, is however a matter of discussion. And also the notion of gender-based violence against women should include, as also Ragnar said, online gender-based violence against women, which was defined by the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women as any acts of gender-based violence against women committed, assisted, or aggravated in part or fully by the use of ICT. So encouraging references to online stalking, online sexual harassment, the inclusion of hate speech online on the basis of gender, inclusion of forms of violence that are developing because of the use of technology, no consensual dissemination of sexual images, for example, deepfake, and so on. Other legal bases might be explored, in particular the interpretation, and this is in the amazing report of the European Women's Lobby Towards a Europe Free from Male Violence. For example, the definition of what is sexual violence and sexual exploitation under Article 83 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. That would be very important also. And also the interpretation of what computer crimes might entail. So in conclusion, more European Union action is needed, and the most comprehensive possible legal framework would be very important also to constitute a model for other non-European Union countries as well. We do have legal bases in the treaties that might be used, and this should not be underestimated. Obviously, a legal action is not sufficient without a strong support from civil society. Legal action and an action operating in the society as mutually reinforcing to eradicate violence and stereotypes. I also think that a debate on the future of Europe that is going on now cannot but take into consideration the prohibition of all forms of discrimination and of violence against women as expression of gender-based discrimination in society. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Zara. That was a really comprehensive presentation, and we had some small sound problems during part of your presentation, okay. But I think we were able to recover that afterwards. And thank you, Zara, for everything you've done also to support the European Women's Lobby especially looking at the legal basis for any future European action to end violence against male violence against women and girls. That's really going to support us in shaping our advocacy calls and demands towards the EU institutions. And we've already heard from Evelyn Regner the strong support from the European Parliament in that respect. So we really thank you for your expertise and partnership in developing that understanding of what is possible within the treaty. So thank you very much for everything. And thanks to all our panelists. We have a couple of other short interventions now from our members around the same theme. So really, how do we overcome the challenges to the implementation of the Istanbul Convention? I think we're going to go now to our board member from the Czech Republic. So that's Hanna Stelzerova. Are you there, Hanna?
Yes, hello.
Hi, over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to speak about the obstacles for the ratification of Istanbul Convention as the Czech Republic just signed the Istanbul Convention but hasn't ratified. So I believe I was asked to speak about this and our lesson we have learned, because we have been advocating for the signature and ratification of Istanbul Convention for over 6 years in the Czech Republic, together with Amnesty International and our members organizations. And we believe that to improve the awareness of the true significance of the Istanbul Convention is crucial. We need to show how it helps other states and especially women to improve their current situation. We still have very little information and data because talking about domestic violence is still considered as a private issue in the Czech Republic. That needs to be changed because violence against women is a public problem and we need to address that. And to do the campaigning and raising awareness, as we spoke about, we need to do on the political level and also on the public level. And we believe that it helps to use simple and positive language to explain how can Istanbul Convention help to combat violence against women. We need to share stories of victims of violence for people to understand that this can happen to any woman, to prevent secondary victimizations as well, to show the positive example, how Istanbul Convention can help significantly, to show what measures must be put in place to be able to combat violence at the state level, and how we can help to victims, how to prevent violence from happening. And very helpful are the international successes and measures implemented in other countries that we can show our politicians and as an example. And very most important are collecting data and facts because we need to prove that there is a problem in violence against women and that measures in place work. And very important is to build coalition and cooperate with allies, with other organizations, embassies, states, politicians, and to build this support for the Istanbul Convention much broader than just women's organizations. So most important are campaigns, raising awareness, and we have a research saying that when people really know what is Istanbul Convention about, they agree with the ratification. They are for if they know that Istanbul Convention is about violence against women and it's just about the measures. And to be true, the name of convention as Istanbul Convention wasn't very helpful in these times in the Czech Republic, but by explanation and bringing more data and raising awareness about the true meaning of this convention, we believe we can overcome the obstacles. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks for all the work that you're doing in the Czech Republic and the work of all women's organizations there. And thanks also for your ideas about how we communicate more clearly about the real purpose and impact of the Istanbul Convention, and also how we build coalitions with others and with others in public life and politics as well. I think those are really important strategies for us. So I'm going to now take us to our last respondent. That is Elif Eger from the Purple Roof Foundation. Elif, I hope you're there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you so much. Thank you for organizing this. I don't want to take much time. Everyone said very important things. People are already, my colleagues have already, my fellow feminists and women from women's organization, you have all underlined very important things. From the perspective of Turkey, one of the biggest challenge for us was the implementation. We never have experience. We could never experience how Istanbul Convention would change the system. We experienced it to some extent, but we didn't. It was not possible for us to see full implementation. But we used it with a lot when the system blocked, when we couldn't get through the system, when the patriarchal perspective penetrates the bureaucracy. We used this as a very important instrument to push that system. And I believe that we will continue to do so. All these suggestions about like municipalities reminds me how we use Istanbul Convention to pressure bar associations, for instance, for free legal aid. Therefore, we will continue to with this fight, with this pressure. Gender equality is like the main idea of Istanbul Convention, is the way it shows us how gender equality is connected to violence against women. we believe that it is one of the most significant solutions, like to establish gender equality within the society, this mentality. We all know that it is really hard, and we all have been struggling for this, I know, but we have to continue with this fight, with education system, with at every level in the society, to establish the idea that there is equality between genders, and no one can inflict violence against women. And also, I just want to highlight that it is great to be here, to see you, to talk to you, because we know that from Turkey, from the experience of Turkey, we know that we are not an isolated case. Unfortunately, this is a very prevalent issue now. It was great for me to listen to all these experiences. Lastly, from Poland, for instance, we know that our high-level authorities refer to your countries while when they withdrew from the convention, they refer to Poland, they refer to Bulgaria, for instance. They use each other as examples, bad examples. So it is great to have these kind of platforms, to have a transnational feminist solidarity against these attacks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elif, and really thanks to all of the panelists on the second panel for talking about the obstacles to the implementation of the Istanbul Convention, but also talking about some of the solutions as well. I think it's really important that we're able to come together to find some solutions to overcome those obstacles. I think there were a couple of questions, but I think there was one about why Poland had the decision to withdraw, but I think, Gosha, that you answered that. There was a second really interesting question that I don't think we've got time to address, but I wanted to mention it here, which was the impact of class actually on reporting and the ability to report. And I think a few speakers did mention the disproportionate impact of violence against women and girls of different categories or of different marginalized groups. But I think it's also important to have that class element as well. So it's 4 minutes before the end, so I'm going to attempt to sum up and do all the thank yous, if that's okay. We can also continue the conversation on Twitter. I also saw a great suggestion from our Portuguese member, thank you, Alexandre, about the importance of also using the Council of Europe recommendation on preventing and combating sexism and seeing how those two go together. I was speaking on that topic yesterday at the Council of Europe event on the 10th anniversary of the Istanbul Convention. So thanks for bringing that up, Alexandra as well. Thank you. So I want to say thank you to every single speaker and every single participant who's been here today. In fact, we had around 100 people registered and we had around 150 people participating today, which is absolutely astonishing. And that is just within the Zoom call. We were also live streaming, and you can also go back and see the video afterwards, or share it if you want to with colleagues or others that you think would benefit from watching this. I want to thank in particular all of the different speakers at also the beginning, and also Nancha Sanchez, who hosted us today. I think there's just a few things that I wanted to highlight perhaps before I close us up. I think it's been important today to recognise the real significance of the Istanbul Convention. Sometimes as feminists, certainly those of us fighting to end male violence against women and girls, it feels like we're always going backwards, or we're always running to keep standing still. But I think sometimes to take the long view and see just how far we've come, and to articulate some of the impacts that the Istanbul Convention has had, really starting to tackle the deeply rooted structural issues which lead to male violence against women and girls. We've heard, I think all of us here agree, including those from the institutions who spoke today, that the EU and the member states must ratify and implement the Istanbul Convention. And there are ways where that can happen. So we have to keep the hope alive, and we have to support our sisters in countries where that is under threat. We know that COVID has exposed women to even further to male violence. We also know that COVID has created more awareness and more public conversations about male violence and against women and girls, including the issues of coercive control. So we also heard that there is a lot from our Turkish sisters in particular, the importance of the solidarity, the feeling of not being alone, the sense that there are others out there who are supporting you in your struggle. And we want to say that we will be there, because I think we know that we cannot end male violence against women and girls alone. It requires massive coordination and coalition building. It means concerted efforts by millions and millions of women, by thousands of women's organizations, partnership with institutions, with governments, with mayors we've heard about today as well, with individual politicians, that we know we have the support. It also means finding ways to communicate our message more clearly, to build broader coalitions and to reach the public as well. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe has requested the expertise of the Venice Commission to prepare a comparative studies on the ratification and denunciation of council conventions. So it's really important that we have this work, particularly in relation to Turkey and potentially Poland, to strengthen really the legal and political framework for these tools and for these conventions as well. And the EU lacks a harmonised approach to systemically address all forms of male violence against women and girls. So we need a harmonised approach at EU level to all forms of violence, male violence against women and girls. We've heard today that must include online violence against women and girls. For us, it must include also sexual exploitation of women and girls. We want to see a comprehensive EU approach. The list of EU crimes in the Treaty of the European Union must be expanded as a minimum to include violence against women and girls, so that we have that addressed as a common basis in the member states. And we will be demanding, and I know we can count on your support in this work, a comprehensive European legislative framework to combat and eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls. We would like to see a horizontal directive at EU level as its cornerstones, and that has to adopt the standards of the Istanbul Convention, including the definition of violence against women and girls and the fact of addressing all forms of male violence against women and girls. I think that's what we've heard today. I invite you to have a look at our excellent report that was produced by our experts. It's been put in the chat. I invite you also to continue the conversation on Twitter. I'm definitely sure this is not the last time we'll be talking about the measures also at EU level that can be done to reinforce EU action to end male violence against women and girls. But I hope today, most of all, you have maybe learned something, you've maybe heard something new. I really hope that you leave feeling a little bit more hopeful about where the opportunities lie, the extent of interest, support and solidarity, and that will inspire you to keep and continue your actions to end violence against women and girls, to implement the Istanbul Convention, because the Istanbul Convention saves lives. Together, if we're loud, if we're united, we can end male violence against women and girls. So with that, I want to thank everybody who's involved in organising today's meeting, in particular, all of our colleagues at the Turkish Coalition and the Turkish EWL coordination, especially Aslihan, who has worked really tirelessly for, and actually means that she's hardly slept for the last couple of months, and who's here behind the scenes. My colleague Claire Forson, who's the Director of Policy Campaigns at the European Women's Lobby, who's also been working incredibly hard to pull today's event together. I want to thank my colleagues from our communications team, Adriana and Mirta, who've done an amazing job in pulling together the videos and the social media, and also all the great visuals you've seen that we've been using on social media. So thank you to both of you, and also to Asha, who's really been helping with the content today and the question and answers. So, and I thank finally all of you participants to spend another 2 hours on a screen in today's lives. I know that can be really tiring. So I really, really thank all of you for being here, for your questions, for your engagement, for the work that all of you do. And we look forward to continuing to work with all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thanks to the interpreters.
Constitutional presidential decision to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention in Turkey is a major letdown for the women of this country. It will encourage misogynist groups waging war on women. It will undermine the democratic and secular principles of this country and endanger the international human rights system. But it will not deter us from our just struggle for freedom and justice with greater force and exuberance. The Istanbul Convention remains in force.
Women's Coalition binds itself with the Istanbul Convention with respect to the human rights and regional and international law.
Avrupa Konseyi İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin yürürlükte kalması ve uygulanması için disk olarak tüm gücümüzle ısrarcı olmaya devam edeceğiz.
Republican People's Party, CHP of Turkey, binds itself with the Istanbul Convention with respect to the human rights and regional and international law.
Avrupa Konseyi İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nin yürürlükte kalması ve uygulanması için HDP olarak tüm gücümüzle ısrarcı olmaya devam edeceğiz.
Kadın Partisi insan haklarına, bölgesel ve uluslararası hukuka saygıyla İstanbul Sözleşmesi'ne bağlıdır.
Council of Europe Istanbul Convention is still continue to be implemented by Republican People's Party.
Even though the presidential decision of the withdrawal from the convention is null and void, Izmir Metropolitan Municipality is bound by Istanbul Convention that is still in force in Turkey and will continue to implement all its regulations within its jurisdiction. Istanbul Convention saves lives.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
İstanbul Sözleşmesi yaşatır.
Istanbul Convention saves lives.